Welcome everybody to the 706 podcast, where we, that is me, Connor, and my fellow movie fiends, introduce yourselves, guys.
I'm Tony.
Anthony.
How's it going, guys? Kirk here.
This is the podcast where we take a look at a movie and try to decide as a group whether it is one of the 706 greatest movies of all time. I've recommended a movie for today, and these guys are going to say whether they want it to be included in the canon of the 706 greatest movies of all time. The movie I recommended for today is The Americanization of Emily, which is sort of a farcical romantic comedy about the D-Day invasion. You guys know what date is today?
Oh, wow.
It is June 6th. We are hosting this episode on the, I believe, the 76th anniversary of the D-Day invasion by pure accident. I did not intend this, but it's just a weird synchronicity. But, okay, so you guys all watched the movie. We all watched it just now. Would you guys like to give me your first impressions on what you thought of it?
I thought...
Anyone wants to start? Maybe Tony?
Sure. I thought this movie was a movie that it left me a little bit conflicted. There were things in it that I really appreciated, and I think it touched on some themes that I found very personally resonant and addresses kind of some questions that I grapple with myself. Mm-hmm. You know, what is courage? You know, what does it mean to be courageous? How valuable is that? And also the idea of the responsibility of storytelling and crafting narratives, right? And like, what is the purpose of this valorization of honor and glory in war, and as well as these kind of traditionally like masculine ideas of like heroism and like going in and kicking ass and sort of these things that we try to like, we have the toxic bad version of that, and then we have kind of the positive version of that. Is it truly possible to disentangle those two things, to draw those distinctions, or is it just kind of all bad? Do we have to throw it all out entirely? And I think this is a movie that really speaks to that, what feels like a very modern dilemma. And I think that our protagonist kind of embodies these ideas and my own ambivalence about them. But I guess when I say I'm ambivalent about the movie itself, it's that I'm not 100% sure where the movie itself comes down on these questions. It has kind of a provocative ending, and it makes some kind of provocative choices in its second half.
Yeah. But
I definitely enjoyed the farcical, Strangelovian conceit of it all. And I feel very unprepared. I don't have the names of who are our two actors, Connor, our two main actors, not Julie Andrews, obviously. I know who she is, but the male lead, and then
it's James Garner.
Character. What?
Is our male lead. And then James Coburn is the bus character, who is the sort of very military man.
Yeah, and they in particular I thought were outstanding. The bus character I thought was like absolutely perfect, hilarious, absolutely also detestable. I despised this man thoroughly by the end of the movie, but on the whole I liked it.
Sure. Anthony, any thoughts?
All right. I thought the highs, and there were a lot of the movie, were really good, but I also thought there were a lot of lows, and that there were a lot of moments that just I felt like dragged.
Sure.
And where like at certain points, it like the satire almost like just dragged so far to become almost just a question of like, what are they even saying in this particular sort of moment?
Sure.
And that fault is particularly, I think, clear in the Julie Harris, James Garner scenes. And some of those romantic parts did not work for me at all.
Sure.
I don't know if it's because I did not particularly care for the actress in that part, or if it was a part of the movie.
You didn't like Julie Andrews in this movie?
Okay. But I also think part of the problem is it's a 1964 film that's an obvious parody of a lot of the sort of melodrama films coming out of like, you know, late 40s throughout the 50s.
Sure.
Sort of James Garner doing a loose impersonation of Burt Lancaster in From Here to Eternity, sort of, in a way. It's sort of that like character, but making him brilliant for his cowardice, which I thought was a great choice. and some of the other ones I can't think of the names of at the moment. But also, like, I think the ending, I almost wanted it to end on the D-Day part, where he just sort of dies and he becomes this sort of hero. And, you know, we get that family part at the end. I love that part. And even though I kind of laughed when he comes back, I don't know if it was a better choice to end the movie there.
Sure. Yeah, the ending is very, like, problematic. We can discuss it further. But Kirk, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I quite enjoyed this movie. I don't think I'm well enough equipped to kind of speak on the socio-political or the moralistic aspects of the movie. You know, in terms of his perspective and how it aligns with, you know, anti-war rhetoric, but I thought, just on a personal level, I could appreciate the kind of juxtaposition and how, you know, the juxtaposition of this opulence and elegance and extravagance that were presented in the beginning of the movie, when he's presented as this, you know, this second in command, this kind of, what was his name? A dog runner.
So-called dog robber. So he's basically
dog
this
robber,
like butler who arranges all these.
Yeah, like a handler for this general, and you know, acquiring all these fancy, you know, not fancy but extravagant, lavish things in the middle of, you know, war-torn England. And so for me, it was gonna kind of go down the route of trying to understand the unbridled, you know, selfishness and kind of, self-centeredness of America and its place in the war and in the world's kind of position, you know, the position it occupied within the world at that time. But and then it kind of morphed into understanding, this is like a love story within this greater context, that maybe I'll latch on to the romance a little bit more, that kind of was played out in the second act. And then it kind of walked itself into a farcical zone at the end with the invasion. And I thought it was really kind of a bold movie, given when it came out. Usually I think, looking back at the atmosphere of the country in 1964, I think this was still, I mean, it's not like the movie came out in 1946, but it was still, I would imagine, rather, there weren't the countercultural elements that we saw like 3 years later.
Sure.
I mean, they were there, they were just kind of incipient. They weren't fully fleshed out and born out. So I give the movie credit, certainly, and I wonder how audiences reacted to it back then. And I you know, and I did like the juxtaposition of like this classic headliner and James Garner kind of playing this coward, immoral kind of person who abdicates anomic behavior. And it was interesting. I don't know. The movie made me feel certain things that are unique, and so I appreciate it for that.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I mean, this is a movie that I think like kind of thrives on contradiction. You know, maybe to its detriment. It loves to kind of just subvert things and kind of, you know, it's a bit irreverent in that way. Maybe not in the way that we might be used to, but certainly it was reverent at the time. And Kirk, as you mentioned, obviously, I mean, it would be kind of crazy to make a sort of farcical film kind of sending up, you know, the heroism of people storming Omaha Beach, especially, I mean, and it seems so to us now, looking back on it even. I mean, you can only imagine how it was back then. And certainly there was a big reaction, you know, from audiences. A lot of audience, you know, members definitely were offended by this movie. I think it's true. I can't quite tell. I mean, critics in general, there are only a few critics who really took moral objection to it. I think, controversial was maybe part of its marketing, maybe part of its hype a little bit. But yeah, no, certainly. I mean, it's a movie that really loves to turn everything upside down, turn this idea of heroism upside down, right? The kind of idea, that I think the Charlie character, James Garner's character, presents is this idea of, maybe, right? It's kind of this contrast between honor and life, living life, really embracing life. And he chooses life above honor, and that means basically being a coward. And, the movie kind of portrays him as a hero, is sort of the idea, that he's sort of turning his back in this context of this great heroism of Omaha Beach Landing, right? He's turning his back on it. And that's just very interesting. But the problem with the ending is that at the very end, he ultimately decides to essentially take credit for being a true hero in the normal sense, even though he wasn't. He was really a coward the whole time, but he claims to be, right, a hero in a way that seemingly turns this whole ideology on its head and kind of completely destroys itself. It kind of cancels itself out, such that he's not doing anything at all. But I think that's kind of a writerly flourish. I think that's kind of just a great moment to kind of say, if we were really being consistent, here's what he'd do, right? Or here's what at least Emily would convince him to do. But I'm not sure, we necessarily have to take that at face value. I think we're supposed to understand that war has been shown to be kind of a sham, and to believe that, and not so much to, at the end of the day, he is kind of being scoundrelly in, ultimately selling out even the few principles that he had, right? So that's kind of interesting.
I feel like that writerly flourish, though, like, would work much better, like, on the page. And like, particularly, like, even in like a book or like novel.
Sure.
But on the screen, what it does is it ends up just pushing it into like that very melodrama, like romantic picture it's kind of wishing to also poke fun at.
Sure.
It's like, it's not too different from like the sort of Casablanca ending, which, you have echoes of when they're in the rain.
Definitely. There's definitely some Casablanca vibes with the
but
rain
that's
scene,
maybe how this movie got made, like bringing back, bringing the focus back to the romance, to the dyad, these two huge supernovas, in terms of recognizability, and it's kind of like a fan favorite ending, and it does kind of brush the morality aspect to the side. That's for sure. It was a little problematic because, like, I was trying to think it through, like, so you're not a principled coward, and like what you built yourself up to be throughout the movie, and in terms of devising the valor that accompanies or attends war. So it was a little confusing from a critical perspective, but when you think of it from a popular perspective, I think that a lot of mainstream moviegoers, just in the momentary realization, the momentary fact that they were able to see James Garner and Julie Andrews reunited, and tie a little bow on that, I think was sufficient enough for the studio maybe to even get the movie. I don't know.
Kirk, I think you're touching your mic or something, because you're really quiet, and then you'll hear like a brushing sound.
Sorry about that, guys.
No, it's okay.
You're there.
No,
I did the brave thing. I chose cowardice myself. I chose not to say
J.K.
anything.
Rowling's actually.
I don't know how the movie would feel about that. I'm not quite sure.
No, long story short, basically what I was saying is that, I think there were commercial considerations, possibly with the ending, and maybe just to kind of dampen the critique it would have received from the public. Maybe they wanted to kind of pull the wool back over people's eyes in the end. I'm not sure.
I kind of take issue with even that justification, because if you're really thinking like that, I feel like those are two separate issues. I mean, you don't have to end the movie with Julie Andrews and, damn it, what was his name again?
James Garner.
James Garner. Sorry. You don't have to end the movie with James Garner and Julie Andrews apart and have him betray everything he ever believed in. I think that's a far less satisfying ending than having him stick to his guns and have him love him for that. Have her be like, wow, like this really is brave of you. This truly is courageous of you to do this. And I think you could have had it both ways. I feel like the movie, when it ends the way it does, it feels like a betrayal. I feel like kind of a dupe for being at all invested in this guy and his kind of the stand he's taken. Because obviously, like as she points out, like there is a kind of courage to the way he chooses to live his life. Because he gives the speech earlier in the movie, his kind of philosophical speech about how he thinks about war and why he is a coward, in his own words. And it's extremely principled and extremely reasonable when he says it that way. And at the end of the movie, it's like, well, I guess he didn't believe in anything at all, because what he really meant was that having principles is dumb, which is like not at all what he was saying. Like it just, it makes me feel like, well, if having principles is dumb, why make a movie at all? Why make any kind of artistic statement?
Sure.
Why care about anything? It completely takes the wind out of the movie. And it leaves me with a really kind of a bad taste in my mouth.
Right. I guess, the argument you make is that, his life has to come first. He doesn't want to, but then it means not facing the consequences of his taking a stand, right? Which obviously is very unsatisfying, because I think you got at that, Tony, that kind of the idea is that he does face consequences a little bit, for the stand he takes. I mean, I don't know. Well, maybe not. I mean, like I said, he mostly lives his life, but we're supposed to think of him as a bit of a scoundrel at first. We gradually come to see him as kind of virtuous in a way because of his principle stand, right? Because he's sort of resisting the temptation to, so to speak, honor war as an institution. But then ultimately he does anyway, right? And so, he's kind of just selling out his entire ideology, it seems. So I agree with you, Tony. And I think, it would have been better because in some ways, right, Julie Andrews' character kind of assimilates to Charlie, to James Garner's character. Emily assimilates to Charlie and kind of takes on his perspective on things. For instance, the scene where eventually she learns that she thinks that Charlie is dead, and her first reaction, or the reaction of her mother, is to say, like, why would he go and do a thing like that? Like, we were so, we're very disappointed in him. You don't need to bring it up again that he died a hero at Normandy, right? So I think, wouldn't have been nice too what if James Garner's character also kind of assimilated and learned some honor too? And I don't know.
One last thing too about it is, when I think about it more, I don't know if, maybe it is a commercial consideration is the way you'd want to put it, but I think that if the movie had ended, with him sticking to his guns or whatever, that would have been a little too subversive to completely take the wind out of the D-Day invasion. They had to kind of reify that narrative, even if with like a little bit wink, even in a little playful way. It's like they couldn't quite commit to the truly war is a huge farce, it's a huge joke, but do that in an earnest way. They had to kind of back away from that, I feel like. So anyway.
But at the same, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Anthony.
No, but at the same time, it's like the whole movie sets up for the beginning is like even the generals themselves are farcical, like people. They have these sort of like principles of identity and principles of like wanting the organization to be recognized, to succeed, to of course win. But they're also like, plagued by a sort of like a sort of identity crisis that's always about like being almost a playboy. The alcohol, the party, having these men cater to almost every need, surrounded by the decadence of the American items, all in, war-rationed England.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So it becomes complicated to really try to say who's most principled, but yeah, I guess, one issue too that I would take issue with, or I was wondering about, Anthony already mentioned he didn't really buy the romance between our two main characters, Emily and Charlie. Watching this again, I have to say, like, he's such a jerk, and he's a jerk the whole time. But did you end up liking him in a way? Either of you or any of you?
I admired his realistic, honestly, his realistic take on it, that it is scary. It is, terrifying. Like, why would you actually want to be part of this? Even if you are principled, even if you understand the opposite is, evil, or the good fight type thing. But, I could sympathize with it. I don't know if I liked it.
What do you mean? From when he's slapping asses at the beginning? To,
That's the only time.
Certainly. I felt a little,
it's like watching Tony on screen.
Yeah. But
there's definitely some kind of Mad Men era,
Yes.
sort of sexual mores here and sort of gender attitudes. My favorite one that I caught this time, I totally missed, was when they're having kind of their love scene, and Julie Andrews, they're rolling in the grass or whatever, and she says, "Oh, I hope I don't get pregnant." And James Garner just blank stare. I'm not in control of that at all. I can't do anything.
Shay busted up at that scene for like the next 5 minutes.
Yeah. So definitely, I noticed some things. And
if that happened, wow.
Yeah, it really is kind of awful. So you can definitely read him as just an awful, awful boyfriend. It's just really toxic boyfriend.
She also has that line in there that could be taken in so many different ways, where she talks about how she falls in love so easily, and she's like, every man from Africa. And it's just like, it's either the most subversive line in there, or it's really trying to code, like interracial relationships she has
a problem
with even like the sense of like, of course, like, the war front in Africa,
in the North Africa.
Also, like, if they're trying to codify it as in like an interracial thing of like her falling in love with like every black man she came across.
Yeah, that's one reading of the movie for sure.
I'll just say that Julie Andrews, ever since her time, of course, in the Abbey, and then she went on to stay with the Von Trapps, she has become quite licentious.
Yeah.
She just will fling her body about and sleep with every man and pay a guinea for the bed and breakfast out of guilt and remorse. Yeah. So she's no, it's actually funny. I was watching The Sound of Music earlier today, so that might have plagued my impression of the character. I was trying to project this innocence or this mangled nostalgia onto her that didn't really work in this movie. But so maybe I was a little too interested in the romance as opposed to the political themes.
Well, they're building the universe.
Less disappointed.
They're building the expanded universe. Yeah, no, I found it really shocking too, seeing her in this role. And this was right between Mary Poppins and Sound of Music the next year. So this was an interesting role. And she really liked this one. She kind of heard a lot of things saying like she really misses doing these kinds of roles and stuff. I mean, she's done a lot of really cool stuff, let's be honest. No lack of amazing roles. But yeah, okay, guys. I think since I have a big special event planned for our next segment, I think I'll just call it here, and I'll ask you guys for your final verdicts. Yes or no? Does it make it into the 706? Anyone want to weigh in?
For the reasons, for the ending. If the movie had ended 15 minutes earlier, it'd be a yes. But as movie as it is, it's a no.
Yeah, I actually
sure.
feel like
one thing that Tony made me think of is that, well, hold on, like they couldn't have actually had him expose Normandy as a sham because it never happened, right? In a way. So if you see what I'm saying, I know it's like, and that doesn't make sense. It's not as satisfying for James Garner's arc, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then at the same time, like you have to sort of, I don't know. I really didn't like the ending either, Tony, but I found it's what made the movie kind of stick in my head because it was very provocative,
Okay.
It was a final challenge, but no, I mean, you've already cast your vote, and I think it makes sense.
I've dropped the penny into the bucket, and I can't.
I'm like, wait. Anyway, go ahead, guys.
I like the final attempt at reviving the ending and defending it.
Yeah.
But
No.
I still agree. I think for the most part with Tony, I have the same issue with that
problem.
Yeah, even if I almost didn't need to see him come back to the military. Why couldn't he have just been like this coward who stayed dead, or
sure.
Pretended to stay dead sort of thing?
Sure, I could definitely see that working too. Yeah, kind of cutting off the movie there after the scene where they learn about his death. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to vote yes, just in solidarity with Connor. But any movie that allows me to kind of laugh or have a chuckle at a very kind of violent D-Day scene, it has done something well, in my opinion. So I thought it was quite clever in that sense. So they built him up as such a dastardly scoundrel that it really did kind of tickle me to see it play out that way. And I do agree that if the movie had ended on the beach there, it would have been even. It would have far surpassed where it finally did land. But I would give it a yes.
Sure. Well, that sounds about right. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting movie. Maybe not one of the 706 greatest of all time, but thank you guys for watching. Now, everybody, do you guys know what episode this is?
30.
This is episode 30 of the 706 podcast. Now, I think it's time we take a little look back. And meanwhile, since Tony has uploaded all the 706 podcast episodes to YouTube, I've been keeping score. Where we all stand. How many movies we've gotten into the 706? Do you guys know who has the most movies in the 706?
Is it Kirk?
No, it's probably Connor or Anthony. I'm not sure.
It's not me. You know that.
Good. I'm glad you don't know. Because today we're going to be having an award ceremony. I'm going to be counting up all of the movies you have in the 706. Each of those will count for 1 point. But we're going to do something a little bit extra. You guys remember Mario Party? You ever play Mario Party?
I knew this was coming. Yeah. What are the bonus stars?
Yes. So I have bonus stars for each of you. Now the total is set. You only have so many stars that each of you have. I will give you 1 star per movie you've gotten in. But I'm also going to give you bonus stars based on certain criteria that I have selected. Are you guys ready to hear the criteria?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Bonus star number 1. Tony, cue music, please. Number 1 is the family-friendly star. This is the person with the most family-friendly movies. That is, I've taken an average of I've rated everything from 1 to 4, where a G is a 1 and an R is a 4. And I've taken basically the average of all of your movies. So who do you think is the most family-friendly of us all?
Anthony.
In terms of their movie recommendations. Anthony?
All right.
Not Tony, are you sure?
Well,
I think
actually,
Killer screwed up my curve. It really.
but Tony did have that Barney.
That's true. Barney should be a strong. Yeah.
Barney was a G, so that should have brought it down. But you guys are right. It is definitely Anthony. He has a score of 2.857, so it averages out to a PG-13. You have 4 R's, 2 PG-rated movies, and 1 G-rated movie. And the runner-up actually is Tony. But in that case, I only counted Simon Killer as an R, so I'm not sure if that was completely fair. And Kirk and I are basically tied because we have a bunch of PG-13 movies. That's kind of our thing, Kirk.
Oh, okay.
All the 13-year-old.
And most of our movies are R's, right, in the 706. The average movie in general is an R. But anyway, okay. Next star is the epic star. Longest average runtime of movies. Who do you think
Connor.
is the longest average runtime?
I think Connor.
You already know. It's
Connor
me.
by a long mile.
It's me. It's me by a mile. I win with an average of 130 minutes.
Wow.
And total time watched of my movies is 17.5 hours. The runner-up is Kirk, not even close, with 15 hours and 20 minutes. So,
Wow.
And Kirk has hosted way more episodes than I have. So that's 1 star. That's 1 star for me. Now, the next is the patient star, the person who has waited longest between episodes to present their movie.
Tony.
Who do you think that is?
It's either Tony
I think
or
it's
me.
you, Connor.
Sure. Well, it depends on how you reckon it up. So I am going to say it's Tony because he has the most episodes where he hasn't hosted. So that's 9. Whereas I have 8 episodes where I didn't host ever since Battleship, which, known as the Battleship
Forgot
effect.
about that.
It's a real freeze on your ability to get picked. And so, yeah, but technically I've been the longest in terms of time. At 3 years and 10 months, Tony, you are the longest in terms of episodes. So I'll give it to you. You get a star.
Very well.
Okay. Next one is the Armand White star for most promising young critic. You guys know Armand White, right? The famous contrarian film critic. So this is the person with the most minority votes. The person who, when everyone else says no, says yes. When everyone else says yes, he says no. Who is it?
Ooh,
biggest contrarian among us.
Anthony or me?
Is it Kirk?
Who do you think it is, Tony?
I kind of think it's me, actually, but I don't know.
I think it's you, the greatest contrarian. It is, in fact, Kirk, as he showed today with another great minority vote pick. So that's Kirk. You have 6 of those, and I'm actually the next in line. I have the other most controversial one. And Tony, you are the least controversial. You're the one who goes with the critical consensus the most.
Well, we all knew that.
I just check Rotten Tomatoes before each episode.
Yeah. You go on Schmoop.
Okay. Next star is the love star. This is the most yeses given to any one person. That is the most yeses they've given to a particular person's movie. So who has the greatest love for another person's movie picks? Any guesses, guys?
So it's someone's yeses for in general, or just for a specific other person?
So between 2 people, has Tony given the most yes votes to me, or have I given the most yes votes to Anthony's movies, for example?
It's probably me to you or Anthony. I'm not sure.
Does this say Kirk to Connor?
As a matter of fact, guys, the love star goes to Tony, who has said yes to 5 out of 6 of Anthony's movies. So Tony has
an unrequited love, I'm afraid. It's
at a rate of 85%. Yes.
Which one did you say no to? Was it trying to remember?
I can't. I think it was.
That was a marginal no. I was on the fence.
Okay. So yes, that was the love star. Now this is a star about hate. The hatred star. The hatred star is the fewest yeses given to any one person. It's just the opposite thing.
Is it me to Tony?
Yes. Anthony wins with a hatred quotient toward Tony of 100%.
Are you serious?
0 out of 6 he said yes to.
Wait, are you serious?
No. Oh, wait. I'm trying to think.
No, yes.
Well, to be fair,
I counted carefully.
Yeah. To be fair, I remember, yeah. I think I was close with Cachet.
Sure. And to be fair, also Anthony is the toughest on everyone else's movies. Anthony is the toughest critic of us all. He gives the fewest yeses to anyone. And in fact, Tony gives the most yeses. So, okay, guys, that brings us to our total. I'm calculating now. I'm calculating your score.
Yeah.
Can I just say that I get +1 for Spice World? Because that should have gotten in. Let's be honest. That was a fucking travesty.
I'm sorry, Kirk. I can't allow it. That would just be we can't break the rules here. We have to, respect the regulation, or else I'd have to put every movie in, right? Okay, guys. So whoever wins this will be crowned the movie king. And all right, the totals are in. In 4th place is Tony with 3 stars. That is, he has 1 movie in the 706 and two bonus stars. In 3rd place is me with 5 stars. I got 4 in the 706 and 1 bonus star. 2nd place is Anthony with 6 stars. That is, he has 4 in the 706 and 2 bonus stars. And number 1 is wait a minute. It's a tie, guys. I'm sorry, it's a tie. The Star Award show is a tie. Unfortunately, Kirk also has 6.
Oh, okay.
I should have said
5
no to
movies in the
Inception.
706. 5 movies in the 706, but 1 bonus star.
There we
So,
go.
guys, I'm afraid we can't crown a movie king this time. We'll have to wait until the next award show.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Fair enough. Well, I would just like to shout out Connor. This was incredibly well researched and thorough and excellent.
Yeah.
It had all the melodrama of a Nintendo game. So.
With John
Yeah.
Hopkins, engineering staff on
there's
hand.
lots of statistics, lots of calculation, but I was glad to discover the true story of the 706, which is this extremely toxic relationship between Tony and Anthony.
Well, that tie was like a La La Land moment at the Oscars.
Sure, I know you're on the edge of your seat. Okay, guys, so that concludes the Star Awards segment. Now, please recommend your movies for next time, and I will get to choose which one I want to watch.
I'll say, Connor, based on the strength of that segment, you should start a spin-off contest or podcast called The 16, where you attempt to discover the 16 best episodes of the 706 podcast. I think they have a listenership of 4 people, but they will be very devoted, very passionate.
Yeah. I could now. There's a whole meta to the 706 podcast that I've discovered.
Well, I went least recently, so I say Kirk should go first.
I don't really have any like genius light bulb recommendations. I think, yeah, I have been struggling to pull one out. You know what? Actually, and this is I'm doing it for the wrong person, so this is kind of a throwaway, but Hoop Dreams, great, one of the best sports movies / documentaries of all time. I forget the years, like early 90s. Follows 2 young black Chicago basketball players, kind of prodigies, and how they're trying to obviously transcend their environment and escape and become, superstars in the era of Michael Jordan, in Chicago, where he's ascended to this like godlike status. So it's a really, really telling story about racial injustice and determinants of social progress and the idea of class mobility and exceptionalism in America. And then also it's just really kind of fun to watch these kids, play basketball and hope for the best for them. But so it's a good ride. But yeah, Hoop Dreams.
Anthony, why don't you go?
Thanks, Kirk.
Me? All right. We'll keep the family-friendly rating going, Connor.
Sure.
With a raunchy movie.
Wait, it's raunchy? No.
From 1931.
Okay, good.
A pre-code film.
Ooh.
It's in sound, don't worry, called Millie. It's about a young and naive woman who decides to elope with the affluent rich businessman, only to realize perhaps her eye is going a different way. I won't say to who or to which gender.
Oh my goodness. It's Connor bait.
Just looking at the different faces right now, Kirk is shaking his head and Connor licking his lips. All right, I'll go with I was going back for them a million things like I always do, but I think I'm gonna go with, we've never done this is one of my favorite filmmakers. We've never done one of his movies. Michael Mann's Collateral. I like that movie a lot, and I think I've talked about it before, but I think it's a really good, it's a very representative Michael Mann film because it really bridges the gap between the two kind of styles that he does, kind of the two worlds he inhabits. And I think it's just like a really solid, great action movie. And I think there's actually a lot to it that we could talk about.
Okay, definitely some standouts here. Definitely I'm tempted in various directions. Guys, can you give me the rebuttals? Can you convince me that your movie is the greatest and that I have to watch it?
Oh man, Anthony, go ahead.
All right.
We can just mock the other people's choices. That's also a functional strategy.
Kirk's is a fantastic film. It'll also take us about a week to watch it.
You know what? It would actually.
But I mean, it would definitely put you in the head for longest, award. Or
how long is it? It's like what, 2.5, 3?
No, it's got to be longer than that, right? It's like 4 hours.
No. Well, it's reasonable, It flies.
I love long stuff, Kirk.
It's true. It's true. I feel like I gave you a point, Kirk.
Yeah. Strategy backfired.
2 hours, 50 minutes.
Yeah. All right. Tony's film was just, he was on filmbro.com just looking up for the Armin White pick, it's fine. That's it.
Sure. And Tony?
Okay, let me just make sure I heard these right.
Why are you're fucking...
I wanted to...
You gotta pick up the slack.
If I wanted to watch... oh my God, I'm bangling the joke because I forget his name. Who made Crybaby?
John Waters.
John Waters.
If I wanted to watch John Waters' Poop Dreams, I would just watch that instead. And if I didn't hear what Anthony's movie was called.
Millie.
Yeah, I don't want to watch that. My movie is, I like doing, I was talking about this before we started recording, but I like the idea of kind of not alternating because I don't want it to be that mechanical, but kind of going between the little bit lesser known stuff and then stuff that more people have seen. And I think my movies, they're all notable movies, but my movie's a movie that a lot of people have seen, and I was a little bit more recent. So that's all. That's my pitch.
Fair enough.
Sure.
Well,
okay.
I would just like to add, my movie was made in 1930. What was yours, Anthony? 31?
Yeah.
Yeah, mine was 1930 actually. Ooh. And there's it takes place in France, and there's closet lesbians involved. It's really great. Wes Anderson makes an appearance, but
that sounds very significant. I'm definitely tempted now.
No. I'm inclined to agree with Tony in the idea that we can kind of jump back and forth a little bit, but ultimately it's Connor's choice. So, if Connor goes to Anthony, that's fair enough. I do love Collateral. I think it's a great movie. But I think this documentary, it's not a movie. I mean, this documentary, this film is very, very topical, of course, with what's going on in America. We're finally, actually, I'm not giving us any credit for, jumping any hurdles, but we're trying to understand what being Black in America actually means. And this is a little bit of a kind of cross-sectional view of two teenagers in Chicago. It's a highly segregated city. So, that's all I got.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Now, this is a tough pick. Kirk has just made an elegant case for Hoop Dreams. 2 hours and 50 minutes, apparently it is. I'm a little bit concerned about the length. But I still can't cross it off my list. Millie sounds really cool. I don't know anything about it. I love the 1930s stuff. But, guys, I'm afraid we've snubbed oh my God, I just forgot. Michael Mann. I was about to call him Michael Bay. I was about to say Michael Bay.
We have snubbed him.
We've snubbed Michael Bay. We've snubbed Michael Mann quite a lot. We have had Thief. We have had Heat. We have had feats we have had.
We're going to be scraping the bottom of the barrel soon. Pitching like a TV commercial he did in 1983.
So, and I've never seen Collateral.
Really?
So, no, I have not. So, I am going to go with Tony's movie, Collateral.
Oh, I was gonna nominate Miami Vice. We were gonna double dip on the Michael Mann.
I was thinking about nominating Miami Vice, and then I went with Collateral.
I was thinking about Miami Vice. So
I'll say Miami Vice is the cool
choice.
That's the enlightened film Twitter approved.
That's the big brain move.
Yeah. The alternative would be like Public Enemies.
That's a little Armand Whitey for my team.
That would be the cool
choice. That's definitely.
That's why I said, I won't get into it. We'll talk about it next week. But yeah.
Anyway, so, okay, guys, thank you for joining us for the 706 podcast. It's been great. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next time with Collateral.